The massive hall of the Galactic Council Station stretched for nearly a kilometer. Thousands of beings from across the stars sat in their designated sections, representing civilizations that had mastered space travel long before humans had invented the wheel. The air buzzed with translation devices, converting countless languages into comprehensible sounds. Hee-Jin Park stood in the human delegation box, her hands clasped behind her back. She wore the formal uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, navy blue with silver trim. Her face remained calm, but inside her stomach twisted with worry. Today would determine humanity's future among the stars. At the center of the hall, a massive holographic display flickered to life. The image showed a creature standing 12 feet tall with dark purple skin and 4 arms. His name was Talvos, and he commanded the Vryn Empire's military forces. The Vryn had ruled the galaxy's military matters for 3,000 years. Nobody challenged them. Nobody dared. Talvos raised one of his arms. The hall fell silent. "Honored council members," he began, his voice booming through the chamber. "We gather today to address a matter of galactic security. The humans of Earth have requested full membership in our council. They wish to be treated as equals." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some species clicked their mandibles in what might have been laughter. Others flashed lights in patterns that translation devices rendered as amusement. Talvos continued. "Before we grant such status, we must ensure these newcomers understand the responsibilities that come with it. We must know they can defend themselves and their allies. We must verify they possess actual combat capability." Hee-Jin's jaw tightened. She knew where this was going. The holographic display changed. Now it showed footage from Earth's recent conflicts. Tanks rolled across deserts firing loud cannons. Soldiers in heavy armor ran through buildings, carrying automatic weapons that sprayed bullets everywhere. Fighter jets screamed through the air, missiles trailing smoke behind them. "Observe their methods," Talvos said, and now his voice dripped with contempt. Loud, clumsy, wasteful. They announce their presence to everyone within kilometers. They destroy everything around them, including what they claim to protect. They rely on primitive explosives and metal projectiles. More laughter echoed through the hall. A delegate from the Kresh Unity, a species of insect-like beings, made a chittering sound that translated as mockery. Another representative from a race of crystalline creatures dimmed their lights in what their culture considered the ultimate dismissal. Hee-Jin wanted to speak, to defend her people, but protocol demanded she wait for her turn. She glanced at the woman standing beside her. Bora Lee, Earth's military liaison officer, had her arms crossed. Her expression showed no emotion, but Hee-Jin had worked with her long enough to recognize the anger in her eyes. Talvos gestured with 2 arms, and the display showed more footage. This time it featured Vryn warriors in action. They moved with incredible speed, their armor shimmering with energy shields. They fired weapons that made no sound, only bright flashes of light. Their targets simply ceased to exist, vaporized instantly. The Vryn soldiers left no trace of their presence, no noise. No destruction beyond their specific targets. "This is what true warriors look like," Talvos declared. "Efficient, precise, superior." The hall erupted in applause. Species that had fought against the Vryn in ages past now cheered for them. Such was the power of their reputation. Finally, Talvos turned to face the human delegation directly, his 4 eyes fixed on Hee-Jin. "I propose a challenge. Let the humans send their finest warrior to face ours in combat trials. If they succeed, we will acknowledge their capability. If they fail, they will accept a provisional status for the next century, with limited rights and no voice in military matters." Hee-Jin stepped forward to her speaking platform. "Commander Talvos, Earth seeks membership through peaceful demonstration of our culture, our science, and our contributions to—" "Your contributions?" Talvos interrupted, which was a serious breach of protocol, but nobody objected. "You have been in space for barely 2 centuries. You have no culture to speak of. You are children playing with toys you don't understand." "That's enough," Hee-Jin said, her voice sharp, but the damage was done. The council's arbitrator, a being named Seok-Jin-Oh from the neutral wanderer species, raised his hands. His kind had no stake in political matters and served only to maintain order. "The challenge has been issued according to ancient tradition. Does Earth accept or decline?" Hee-Jin looked at the faces around the hall. Some showed pity. Others showed barely concealed glee at humanity's predicament. If they declined, Earth would be seen as cowards. They would lose trading partnerships, defensive pacts, and any chance of respect. If they accepted and lost, the result would be almost as bad. But if they won, we accept, Yijin said. Talvos's mouth split into what might have been a smile. Excellent. The trials will take place on Ashkar 7, the neutral combat world. You have 1 month to prepare. Send your best warrior. Send your champions. Send whoever you believe can stand against the might of the Vryn. The council session ended shortly after. Hyejin and Bora walked through the curved corridors of the station in silence. Other delegates passed them, some offering sympathetic looks, others averting their eyes entirely. When they reached their private quarters, Bora finally spoke. I know someone. Hyejin poured herself water from a pitcher, her hands shaking slightly from the adrenaline. A soldier? Special forces? We have many excellent— No, Bora interrupted. Not a soldier. Not in the way you're thinking. Someone the Vryn have never encountered before. Someone who doesn't fight with noise and explosions. Who? Bora pulled up a file on her personal device. The screen showed an image of a man, Korean, in his mid-30s. He had a calm face and dark eyes that seemed to look through the camera rather than at it. He wore simple black clothing and stood in front of an ancient temple. His name is Daeho Kim, Bora said. He's a master of an art form the Vryn don't believe exists anymore. An art form they would consider primitive and useless. Hyejin studied the image. The man looked ordinary, not particularly tall or muscular. Nothing about him suggested a warrior capable of facing the galaxy's most feared military. What is he? Hyejin asked. A ninja, Bora replied. The last master of the Shadow Wind clan, and he's the only chance we have. Hyejin stared at the image for a long moment. A ninja, against alien super soldiers with energy weapons and advanced armor. It sounded insane. It sounded like a desperate gamble by people with no other options. Can you convince him to do this? Hyejin asked. Bora closed the file. I'll leave tomorrow. If anyone can make him understand what's at stake, it's me. She paused. I trained with him once. Years ago, he's different. He doesn't think like a soldier. He doesn't think like anyone I've ever met. That's good, Hyejin said quietly, because thinking like everyone else is exactly what Talvos expects. The next morning, Bora boarded a shuttle bound for Earth. The journey would take 3 days. As the station disappeared behind her, she wondered if she was about to drag a peaceful man into a war he never asked for. She wondered if Daeho would even agree to come. She wondered if humanity's fate now rested on the shoulders of one quiet man who lived in the mountains and practiced an art form the galaxy had forgotten. She wondered if they had any chance at all, but wondering wouldn't help. Action would. And that's what Daeho understood better than anyone. Not the action of bombs and bullets, but the action of silence and shadows. The action that came not from strength, but from perfect understanding of when and where to move. Bora closed her eyes and tried to sleep. In a month, the galaxy would learn that humanity had many ways to fight. And the oldest ways, the quiet ways, were often the most dangerous. The stadium was enormous. Millions of aliens filled the seats, their bodies creating a sea of colors and shapes that Daeho had never imagined possible. Some had wings. Others had multiple heads. A few seemed to be made of pure energy, glowing in their seats like captured stars. Daeho stood in the preparation chamber beneath the arena floor. Through the walls he could hear the roar of the crowd. They were excited. They had come to watch a human fail. Bora stood beside him, checking her communication device for the 100th time. The medical team is ready. Sun Wu Nam is one of our best doctors. If you get injured, I will not be injured, Daeho said calmly. He was stretching, moving through slow exercises that looked almost like dance. You can't know that. The Vryn champion has fought 200 battles. He's never lost. Then it is time for him to learn something new. A tone sounded. The wall in front of them began to rise, revealing the arena beyond. Bright artificial sunlight flooded the chamber. The crowd's noise became deafening. Daeho walked forward into the light. The arena was designed to look like an ancient city, full of broken buildings and empty streets. It was a maze of concrete and steel, perfect for ambush and hiding. But it was also covered with cameras and sensors. The Vryn wanted to make sure every moment of the humans' defeat would be recorded. On the far side of the arena, another door opened. The Vryn champion emerged and the crowd went wild. His name was Korval and he looked like a nightmare. 9 feet tall with purple skin stretched over muscles that seemed carved from stone. He wore armor that shimmered with energy shields. His forearms each held a weapon. Plasma rifles, energy blades, a device that hummed with contained power. Korval raised his weapons to the sky and roared. The sound echoed across the arena like thunder. In the observation box high above, Yejin Park watched with her hands gripped tight on the railing. Beside her, a young engineer named Yuna Han was monitoring technical readings. The Vrin armor is generating a massive energy signature, Yuna whispered. His shields could probably stop a rocket. And those weapons... She trailed off, not wanting to finish the thought. Yejin said nothing. She just watched Daeho standing alone in the center of the arena, looking tiny compared to his opponent. Commander Talvos's voice boomed across the stadium through speakers. Behold the human warrior. See how primitive he appears. See his simple clothes and ancient weapons. This trial will last 30 seconds, perhaps less. Let it be a lesson to all who doubt the supremacy of the Vrin. The crowd laughed. Some species made clicking sounds. Others flashed colors that meant mockery. Daeho looked up at the observation box where Hyejin stood. For just a moment their eyes met. Daeho gave the smallest nod. Then he turned to face Korval. An arbiter's voice, calm and neutral, echoed through the arena. The first trial begins in 10 seconds. Victory comes through submission, unconsciousness, or clear defeat. Lethal force is prohibited. 10-9-8. Korval activated all his sensors. Thermal imaging, motion trackers, sound detection, energy scanners. A holographic display appeared on his helmet, showing the entire arena mapped in perfect detail. He could see everything. He could detect anything. 3, 2, 1, begin, Korval raised his plasma rifle and fired it, where Daeho had been standing. The blast tore through empty air. Daeho was gone. Korval's sensors showed nothing. No heat signature. No motion, no sound. It was as if the human had simply vanished from existence. Impossible, Korval growled. He spun in a circle, firing his weapons at random. Plasma bolts scorched buildings. Energy beams cut through walls. The arena filled with smoke and debris. The crowd grew quiet, confused. Where did he go? Yuna asked, staring at her screens. His biosignature just disappeared. He's there, Hyejin said, her voice tight. He's just not where they're looking. Korval stopped firing. He stood perfectly still, listening. His sensors swept the area again and again. Nothing. The human had to be hiding in one of the buildings, using some kind of cloaking technology. That was the only explanation. He stomped toward the nearest structure, his footsteps heavy on the concrete. Come out, human. Face me with honor. Silence. Korval smashed through a wall with one armored fist. The building shook. Dust filled the air. He looked inside, empty. He moved to the next building. And the next, getting more frustrated with each step. The crowd began to murmur. Some laughed nervously. This wasn't what they expected. The human was supposed to fight, not hide like a coward. Show yourself, Korval roared. In the observation box, Talvos leaned forward, his four eyes narrowing. What is happening? Where is the human? On the arena floor, Korval felt something brush against his back. The lightest touch, barely noticeable. He spun around, firing all his weapons at once, nothing. But now his shield generator sparked. Something was wrong with it. He checked his armor's display. The generator had been damaged. Not broken, but damaged. Someone had touched it. Someone had done something to it. Fear crept into Korval's mind for the first time in decades. Daeho had been moving the entire time. While Korval fired blindly, while he smashed buildings, while he raged, Daeho had been circling him. Not running, not hiding in buildings, simply moving with such perfect control that his body generated no heat, made no sound, left no trace. The nanofiber suit helped, bending light around him, but the real invisibility came from Daeho himself. His breathing was so controlled that he produced no carbon dioxide signature. His movements were so precise that he displaced no air. His footsteps were so light that he left no vibrations in the ground. He had learned these skills over 30 years of training. The Vrin had learned to rely on sensors over 30 centuries of dominance. Their technology made them powerful, but it also made them blind to anything their technology couldn't detect. Daeho struck again. This time Korval felt pain. A sharp, precise cut across his left leg. The armor had been penetrated. Just a small cut, barely bleeding, but it shouldn't have been possible. His armor was supposed to be impenetrable. Korval fired behind him, then in front, then to both sides. He spun in circles, weapons blazing. The arena became a war zone. Buildings collapsed. The ground cracked. Smoke filled the air so thick that even the crowd couldn't see what was happening. And in that chaos, Deho moved like a ghost. He struck Korval's right arm, disabling the weapon there. He cut a power cable on the back of the armor. He damaged the sensors one by one, each strike perfectly placed, each cut exactly as deep as it needed to be. Korval was fighting blind now, his technology failing piece by piece. He swung his energy blade in wild arcs, hoping to hit something, anything. Deho waited until Korval overextended on a swing. In that moment he moved. Not fast, because fast created noise. But with perfect timing, he stepped inside Korval's guard, placed his Tanto blade against the Vrin's throat and spoke his first words of the fight. Yield. Korval froze. The blade was cold against his skin. One wrong move and it would cut his throat. His sensors were dead. His shields were down. His weapons were damaged. He had been defeated by an enemy he never even saw coming. The smoke began to clear. The crowd fell absolutely silent. There stood Deho, blade at Korval's throat, his expression calm and neutral. His suit wasn't even dirty. He wasn't breathing hard. He looked exactly as he had at the start of the trial. Korval slowly raised his hands in surrender. Deho withdrew his blade and stepped back. He bowed slightly, a gesture of respect to a worthy opponent. Then he turned and walked back toward his entrance chamber. The arena clock showed 43 seconds had passed. In the observation box, Hijin let out a breath she hadn't known she was holding. Yuna stared at her screens in disbelief. I still don't understand what happened. How did he? He didn't rely on technology, Hijin said quietly. He relied on skill. Across the stadium, Commander Talvos's face had gone dark with rage. His hands gripped the railing so hard the metal bent. This was impossible, unacceptable, a fluke. It had to be a fluke. He activated his communication device and spoke to the Arbiter. I invoke the right of escalation. One trial proves nothing. I demand 4 more trials, each one harder than the last. The Arbiter, Seokjin-o, considered this. According to ancient tradition, the challenger could demand multiple trials if they believed the first result was not definitive. The human must agree to this. In the preparation chamber, Bora relayed the message to Deho. He was cleaning his blade, wiping away the small amount of blood on it. They want 4 more trials, Bora said. You don't have to accept. You won the first one fairly. But winning 1 trial will not be enough to earn respect, Deho replied. They will say it was luck. They will say their champion underestimated me. They will make excuses. He sheathed his blade. No, I will face all 5 trials. And when I am done, there will be no more excuses. You're sure? Deho looked at her and smiled slightly. It was the first time she had seen him smile since they left Earth. I am sure. Tell them I accept. The message went back to the Arbiter, who announced it to the stadium. The crowd erupted in noise again, some cheering, some jeering, all excited for what came next. Korval limped out of the arena, his armor smoking and sparking. He had been a champion for 20 years. He had never felt fear in combat before today. As he passed through the exit, he looked back at the empty arena where the human had been. The mountain air was cold and thin. Bora Lee climbed the stone steps carved into the hillside, counting each one as she went. 200 steps, 300, 400. Her legs burned, but she kept moving. She had made this climb before, years ago, when she was younger and training to become a soldier. The monastery appeared through the morning mist like a ghost. Its wooden walls had weathered centuries of storms. The roof curved in the traditional style, covered in dark tiles. No power lines ran to this place. No vehicles could reach it. Only those willing to climb could enter. Bora found him in the meditation garden. Deho Kim sat perfectly still on a flat stone. His eyes were closed. His breathing was so quiet that even standing 10 feet away, Bora couldn't hear it. He wore simple black pants and a gray shirt. His feet were bare despite the cold morning. She waited. She knew better than to interrupt. 5 minutes passed. 10. Finally, Deho's eyes opened. He looked at her without surprise, as if he had known she was there all along. Perhaps he had. Bora Lee, he said. His voice was soft, almost gentle. It has been 8 years. 8 years and 4 months, Bora replied. She bowed respectfully. I apologize for coming unannounced. You came because you need something. Something important. It wasn't a question. Daeho stood in one smooth motion. No wasted movement. Come, we will have tea. They sat in a small room overlooking the valley below. Daeho prepared the tea himself, each movement precise and deliberate. He poured the hot water. He let the leaves steep for exactly the right amount of time. He served Bora first, then himself. The galaxy mocks us, Bora said after her first sip. The alien races. They think we are primitive, clumsy. They laugh at our military. Daeho listened without interrupting. Bora continued. The Vryn Empire has challenged us. They want us to send a warrior to face theirs in combat trials. If we lose, Earth will be treated like children for the next century. We'll have no voice, no respect, no real place among the stars. And you came to ask me to be this warrior, Daeho said. Yes. Why me? You have soldiers, special forces, people trained specifically for combat. Bora set down her teacup, because those soldiers fight the way the Vryn expect, loud, direct, with technology and weapons everyone can see. But you fight differently. You move in ways they won't understand. You strike from places they won't look. Daeho was quiet for a long moment. He stared out the window at the mountains. I left that life behind. I came here to find peace, to teach the old ways, not to use them for violence. I know, and I wouldn't ask if there was any other choice. Bora leaned forward. But this isn't just about fighting. It's about showing the galaxy that there are many ways to be strong, that ancient knowledge has value, that humans deserve respect. Respect cannot be earned through violence, Kaio maybe not, but it can be lost through cowardice. Daeho looked at her then, really looked at her. His eyes were dark and calm like deep water. You have learned to argue better since we last met. I learned from the best, Bora said, allowing herself a small smile. Daeho stood and walked to a cabinet in the corner. He opened it and pulled out a wrapped bundle. When he unfolded the cloth, Bora saw weapons. A tanto blade, its edge perfect and sharp. Shuriken, throwing stars that gleamed in the light. A kusarigama, a chain with a sickle on one end and a weight on the other. These belong to my teacher, Daeho said quietly, and to his teacher before him. They have been passed down through our clan for 400 years. I swore I would never use them except to protect the innocent. Then use them to protect all of humanity, Bora said. Daeho rewrapped the weapons carefully. If I do this, I do it my way. Not your way, not the military's way. I will not become a soldier. I will not follow orders about how to fight. I will be what I am, or I will be nothing. Agreed, Bora said immediately. The council gave us 1 month. When can you be ready? I am ready now. But first I need to visit someone. They descended the mountain together and traveled to Seoul. The city sprawled in all directions, a mixture of old and new. Ancient palaces stood next to glass skyscrapers. Traditional markets operated beside high-tech shopping centers. Daeho led Bora to a small workshop in an older part of the city. The sign above the door read, Minho's Custom Fabrication. Inside, the shop was crammed with equipment. 3D printers hummed. Holographic displays showed complex designs. A young man looked up from his workbench as they entered. Teacher, Minho Choi said, breaking into a wide grin. You actually came to the city. I thought you'd forgotten how to use transportation. I had a good reason, Daeho replied. I need equipment. Special equipment. Minho's expression turned serious. How special? Bora explained the situation. As she talked, Minho's eyes grew wider. When she finished, he let out a low whistle. You're going to fight aliens? With those old weapons? Not just the old weapons, Daeho said. I need something that will help me move unseen. Something that won't rely on technology they can detect. Minho thought for a moment, then started pulling up designs on his computer. Okay, I have an idea. There's this new material, nanofiber weave. It doesn't actually make you invisible, but it bends light around you if you stay still. And if you move slowly and carefully, it creates a kind of blur effect. Most sensors won't pick it up because it's not powered. It's purely physical. How long to make a suit? Bora asked. 3 days, maybe 4. Minho was already taking measurements, his hands moving quickly. I'll reinforce it at the joints. Make it tear-resistant. You'll be able to move completely silently. What about the weapons? Daeho asked. I can't improve perfection, Minho said, gesturing to the traditional blades. But I can make the metal stronger without changing the balance, sharper without changing the weight, and I can add a coating that won't reflect light or make noise against other surfaces. They left Minho's workshop with the promise that everything would be ready in 3 days. Bora arranged for their transportation to Ashkar 7. A pilot named Jiwon Song would fly them in a ship called the Silent Arrow. While they waited, Daeho spent his time studying. Bora provided him with every piece of information Earth had about the Vryn, their physiology, their armor, their weapons, their combat techniques. Daeho absorbed it all without taking notes. He simply read and remembered. Sometimes he would stand and move through a series of motions as if testing something in his mind. Other times he would sit completely still for hours. "Doesn't it bother you?" Bora asked one evening. "Knowing you'll be fighting for all of humanity? All that pressure?" Daeho looked up from the file he was reading. "Pressure exists only if you fight against the situation. If you accept what is. If you move with it instead of against it, there is no pressure. There is only action and stillness. I will do what I can do. Nothing more. Nothing less." "That's very zen," Bora said. "That's very practical," Daeho corrected. "Fear and worry waste energy. I will need all my energy for what comes next." On the third day, Minho delivered the suit. It looked simple, almost like regular black clothing. But when Daeho put it on and stood against a wall, Bora had to look twice to see him. When he moved, he seemed to fade at the edges. "It's perfect," Daeho said. They boarded the Silent Arrow the next morning. Jiwon Song greeted them with a casual salute. She was a former military pilot, now flying diplomatic missions. Her ship was small but fast, designed for speed and stealth rather than comfort. "First time meeting aliens?" Jiwon asked Daeho as they left Earth's atmosphere. "First time leaving Earth?" Daeho admitted. "Well, you picked quite an introduction." Jiwon engaged the faster-than-light drive. "The trip will take 3 weeks. Try to relax. Enjoy the view." Daeho spent the journey much as he had spent the waiting period. He studied. He practiced forms in the cargo hold. He meditated. Sometimes he would stand at the viewport and stare at the stars rushing past. "What are you thinking about?" Bora asked him during one of these moments. "I am thinking that the universe is very large," Daeho said, "and that humanity is very small. But small things can be very strong. A single blade of grass can break through concrete. A drop of water can wear away stone. Size is not the same as power." "Is that what you'll tell yourself when you face the Vryn?" "I will tell myself nothing. I will simply move." On the 21st day of their journey, Ashkar 7 appeared on the view screen. It was a gray planet, covered in various types of terrain maintained specifically for combat trials. Bora could see the massive stadium from orbit, a structure so large it could hold millions of spectators. "That's where it'll happen," Jiwon said quietly. "The Vryn have been advertising this for weeks. Apparently half the galaxy is planning to watch. They think it'll be entertainment." Daeho studied the planet in silence. Finally he spoke. "Let them watch. Let them laugh. Let them think this will be easy." He turned away from the viewport. "Their expectations are my greatest advantage. They will see what they expect to see. Right until the moment they see nothing at all." The Silent Arrow descended toward the planet. In the stadium below, thousands of aliens gathered. At the center of it all, Commander Talvos waited with his champion warrior. They were confident. They were prepared. They were certain of their victory, but they had never fought a ninja before. The second trial took place in a forest section of the arena. Real trees had been brought from a dozen worlds, creating a thick jungle where visibility was limited and sounds echoed strangely. This time, Daeho would face 3 Vryn warriors instead of 1. And these warriors had been equipped with cloaking technology. Hyejin watched from the observation box as the trial began. Beside her, Yoonji Kang, a human xenopsychologist, was taking notes on alien reactions to the previous fight. "The mood has changed," Yoonji said quietly. "Before they were entertained. Now they're curious. Some are even worried." "Good," Hyejin replied. "Let them worry." On the arena floor, Daeho stood at the forest's edge. The 3 Vryn warriors had already entered and vanished from sight. Their cloaking devices made them nearly invisible, but nearly wasn't the same as completely. The trial began. Daeho walked into the forest slowly, as if taking a casual stroll. His eyes scanned the trees, not looking for shapes but for disturbances. A leaf that moved wrong, a branch that bent without wind, light that reflected where it shouldn't. The first Vryn warrior thought he had the perfect ambush position. He was crouched in the branches above, completely cloaked, waiting for the human to pass beneath him. His weapon was aimed and ready. Deho stopped walking. He tilted his head, as if listening. Then, without warning, he threw a shuriken straight up. The throwing star flew through the air and struck something that shouldn't have been there. The Vryn warrior's cloaking device sparked and failed. He became visible, falling from the tree in surprise. Before he hit the ground, Deho was already moving. He caught the falling warrior with his kusarigama chain, wrapping it around the Vryn's leg and using his own momentum to slam him into the ground. The warrior didn't get back up. One down. The other two Vryn adjusted their strategy. They wouldn't hide in predictable places. They would move, circle, attack from multiple directions at once. But Deho wasn't in the forest anymore. Or rather, he had become part of the forest. He pressed his body against a tree trunk, matching its rough texture. His breathing slowed until it matched the rhythm of wind through leaves. He didn't move like a person moving through nature. He moved like nature itself. The second Vryn warrior crept through the underbrush, his sensors trying to detect the human's heat or movement. His screen showed nothing. Where was the target? He had to be close. Had to be. A hand grabbed his wrist. The Vryn spun, but Deho was already behind him, disabling his cloaking device with a precise strike to the power cell. The warrior tried to fire his weapon, but Deho swept his legs out from under him and applied a pressure point technique that left the Vryn conscious, but unable to move. 2 down. The third warrior panicked. He fired blindly into the forest, plasma bolts burning through trees and vegetation. He was giving away his position with every shot, but he didn't care. He just wanted to hit something. Anything. Deho used the trees themselves as weapons. He triggered a branch to swing down, hitting the warrior's helmet and cracking his visor. He kicked loose a rock that struck the warrior's knee, making him stumble. He created small sounds in different directions, making the warrior spin and fire until his weapon overheated. When the warrior's gun finally failed, Deho stepped out of the shadows behind him and tapped him on the shoulder. The warrior jumped and spun around. Deho stood there calmly, hands empty, showing he meant no further harm. The warrior looked down and saw that his armor had been opened in 3 places. His shield generator was disconnected. His communication device was removed. If Deho had wanted to kill him, he could have done so several times over. The warrior raised his hands in surrender. The crowd in the stadium sat in stunned silence. Some of the alien delegates were starting to whisper among themselves. This human fought like nothing they had ever seen. He used his enemies' expectations against them. He turned every advantage into a disadvantage. Commander Talvos's rage was growing. 2 trials lost. Impossible. He called for the 3rd trial immediately, not even waiting the customary day between matches. The 3rd trial took place in the desert section. 5 Vryn warriors this time, all equipped with long-range weapons and thermal detection. The environment was completely open with no cover, no trees, no buildings, just flat sand under a hot artificial sun. This was supposed to exhaust the human, make his skills useless without places to hide. Deho stood at the desert's edge and studied the terrain. Then he removed his shoes. Barefoot, he walked into the sand. The 5 Vryn warriors spread out in a wide formation, their sensors tracking the human's heat signature. Finally, they could see him clearly. He was walking slowly across the open sand, making no attempt to hide. This was it. This was their chance. They opened fire. But Deho was no longer where he had been. He moved across the sand like water, each step flowing into the next. The Vryn weapons fired where their sensors said he should be. But by the time the plasma reached that location, Deho had already moved. The hot sand was his ally. The heat distortion made visual targeting difficult. The loose ground absorbed his footsteps, and his perfect economy of movement meant he generated minimal heat despite the environment. Deho drew them close, made them think they had him cornered. Then he struck, not with weapons, but with their own environment. He kicked sand into sensors. He used their shadows against them, approaching from angles where the sun blinded their visors. He struck pressure points that made their limbs go numb. In the observation box, Sunwoo Nam, the medic, was shaking his head in amazement. His heart rate is barely elevated. In this heat, after all that movement, he should be exhausted. Instead, he's calmer than I am just sitting here. The 5 warriors fell one by one. Not through overwhelming force, but through perfect technique. Each strike placed exactly where it needed to be. Each movement using only the energy required and no more. When the last warrior yielded, Deho bowed to each of them before leaving the desert. The crowd's silence had turned into something else. Not mockery, not quite respect yet, but recognition. They were beginning to understand they were watching something extraordinary. The 4th trial came the next day in the mountain section. 7 elite Vryn warriors with jetpacks designed to maintain aerial superiority. Mountains were supposed to favor them, with their ability to fly and strike from above. But Daiho had grown up in mountains. He knew their secrets. The warriors flew in formation, scanning the peaks below. Where was the human? He had to be hiding in a cave or behind rocks. But Daiho was climbing, not with equipment, but with pure skill. His fingers found holds in seemingly smooth rock. His body pressed flat against vertical surfaces. He moved upward, in complete silence, using paths the flying warriors never considered, because they had forgotten what climbing meant. When the first warrior flew past, Daiho reached out and grabbed his leg. The warrior's jetpack wasn't designed to carry extra weight. They both fell, but Daiho controlled the fall, using the warrior's body to cushion the impact. The warrior was injured. Daiho was fine. The other 6 realized their mistake. The human wasn't below them. He was above them, and gravity was now his weapon. Daiho triggered small rock slides that forced the warriors into narrow passages. He used his chain to catch jetpacks, pulling warriors into cliff faces. He waited in impossible positions and struck when they flew past, never where they expected. The final warrior, seeing his companions defeated, did something that had never happened in Vryn history. He landed his jetpack, removed his helmet, and surrendered without fighting. Not because he was a coward, but because he recognized that fighting would be pointless. The human had shown perfect mastery of the environment. Continuing would only add another defeat to an already long list. The crowd erupted in mixed reactions. Some species cheered. Others made sounds of disapproval. The Vryn delegates sat in shocked silence. Commander Talvos stood up in his observation box. He had one trial left. One chance to prove that Vryn superiority wasn't a lie. One opportunity to show the galaxy that technology and power would always triumph over ancient skills. He walked down to the preparation chambers and began putting on his own armor. The armor he wore only for the most important battles. The armor that had never known defeat. The 5th trial would be different. This time, Talvos himself would fight. In the human preparation chamber, Bora tried to convince Daiho to rest. "You've fought 4 trials in 3 days. Your body needs recovery time." "My body is fine," Daiho replied. He was meditating, his breathing slow and deep. "I have used less energy in these 4 trials than most people use climbing stairs. Talvos is different from his warriors. He's smarter, more experienced, and his armor is more advanced than anything you've faced. Then he will be a worthy opponent." Hyejin's voice came through the communication device. "Daiho, you don't have to do this. You've proven your point. We can—" "No," Daiho interrupted gently. "This is not about proving points. This is about showing the galaxy that there are many paths to strength, that ancient knowledge has value, that humans deserve to walk among the stars as equals." He opened his eyes. "And sometimes to teach that lesson you must face the teacher himself." The 5th trial was announced for the next morning. The entire galaxy would be watching. Some hoped to see the human finally defeated. Others hoped to see the impossible happen again. The final trial lasted 30 minutes. Not because Daiho struggled, but because Talvos was truly skilled. He didn't make the mistakes his warriors had made. He didn't fire blindly. He didn't rely only on his sensors. He fought with intelligence and experience earned over decades of combat. But intelligence and experience couldn't overcome one simple truth. Talvos had been fighting with technology for so long that he had forgotten how to fight without it, and Daiho knew how to turn technology into a weakness. The arena was set with multiple environments this time. Forest blended into desert. Mountains rose next to urban ruins. Talvos could choose any terrain, any advantage he wanted. He chose to fight in the open on flat ground where his weapons had clear lines of sight. A smart choice. But Daiho didn't fight where Talvos expected. The battle moved like a dance. Talvos would fire and Daiho would already be somewhere else. The commander's armor had predictive AI that calculated probable movement patterns. But Daiho's movements weren't based on patterns. They were based on instinct and years of training that no computer could predict. 15 minutes in, Talvos began to understand what his warriors had felt. The frustration of fighting an opponent you couldn't track. The fear that came from realizing your advantages meant nothing. 20 minutes in, Daiho struck his first real blow. A shuriken that found the gap between armor plates and disabled Talvos's primary weapon. The commander roared in anger and activated his backup systems. 25 minutes in, Talvos's armor began to fail. Not because Daiho had destroyed it, but because he had been systematically disabling it piece by piece. A cable cut here, a sensor damage there, death by 1,000 small wounds. At exactly 30 minutes, Daiho stood in front of Talvos, who knelt in his damaged armor, breathing hard. Daiho's blade rested against the commander's chest right over his heart, not cutting, not threatening, just present. "You fought well," Daiho said quietly, "but you fought with anger. Anger makes you predictable." Talvos looked up at the human who had defeated him and his entire warrior culture. For a moment, rage filled his eyes. But then something changed. The rage faded, replaced by something unexpected. Understanding. "You never tried to kill me," Talvos said, realization dawning. "Any of us. You could have. Multiple times. But you chose not to." "Killing is easy," Daiho replied. "Showing mercy while winning is the true test of skill." Talvos removed his helmet. His four eyes met Daiho's too. Then slowly he bowed his head in submission. The stadium erupted. Not in laughter this time, but in genuine amazement. Some species cheered. Others made sounds of approval in their own languages. The human delegates stood and applauded, tears streaming down some of their faces. In the observation box, Hyejin covered her mouth with her hand, overcome with emotion. Beside her, Yunji was scribbling notes furiously, recording the historic moment. Daiho stepped back and bowed to Talvos, showing respect to a worthy opponent. Then he turned and walked out of the arena. Not celebrating. Not gloating. Just walking as if he had finished a normal training session. The arbiter, Seokjin-oh, rose from his seat. His voice carried across the stadium. "The trials are complete. Earth's champion has achieved victory in all 5 trials. According to ancient tradition, humanity has proven their worth and capability. They shall be granted full membership in the Galactic Council, with all rights and privileges." 3 months passed. The galaxy had changed in small but significant ways. 12 alien species had requested to establish martial training exchanges with Earth. They wanted to learn these ancient combat techniques that had defeated the Vrins. Technology. The Vrin Empire itself had undergone transformation. Talvos, rather than being punished for his defeat, had been asked to reform the military training programs. He insisted on including hand-to-hand combat and stealth techniques. Technology was still important, he said, but it couldn't be the only tool in a warrior's arsenal. One evening, Talvos sent a private message to Daiho. It was simple and direct. "You taught me that strength without wisdom is just noise. Thank you." Daiho read the message in his monastery high in the Korean mountains. He had returned home immediately after the trials, declining all interview requests and celebration invitations. He had done what needed to be done. Now he wanted peace again. But peace, he was learning, looked different now. A young man stood at the bottom of the monastery steps. His name was Jaemin Kwon, and he was 18 years old. He had watched the trials on broadcast, seen Daiho fight, and had been inspired. He wanted to learn. He wanted to understand how someone could be so powerful while remaining so calm. Daiho had turned away 3 other students already. He had come to the monastery to escape the world, not to train new warriors. But something about Jaemin was different. The young man didn't want to learn how to fight aliens. He didn't want to become famous. He simply wanted to understand the art form itself. Why do you want to learn? Deho asked him. Because in all the videos I watched, you never looked angry. You never looked scared. You just looked present, like you were exactly where you needed to be, doing exactly what needed to be done. Jamin bowed respectfully. I want to learn how to be that calm, that focused, that real. Deho studied the young man for a long moment. Then he nodded. Come, we will begin with breathing. In Seoul, Bora Lee had been promoted to Director of Special Operations. She was now establishing a new program called Shadow Corps, training soldiers in techniques that combined modern military strategy with ancient martial wisdom. Minho Choi worked with her, developing equipment that enhanced human capability without replacing human skill. Jiwan Song continued flying diplomatic missions, but now she carried a different kind of cargo. Cultural exchange students, martial arts masters, teachers who would share Earth's knowledge with the galaxy and bring back knowledge in return. In the Galactic Council chambers, Heejin Park stood at her permanent station, no longer in a visitor's box but among the full members. When she spoke now, species listened. Earth's voice carried weight. During one session, a delegate from the Kresh Unity approached her. They were the insect-like species that had laughed the loudest during Talvos's initial challenge. Ambassador Park, the delegate said, their translator making their clicking sounds into words. I owe your species an apology. We judged you without understanding. We saw your technology and assumed we knew your capabilities. We forgot that technology is just a tool. The person using the tool is what matters. Apology accepted, Heejin replied graciously. We all make assumptions. The important thing is learning from them. The delegate paused, then asked, Your warrior, Daiho, is he truly just one man? Not enhanced, not genetically modified. Just one man who spent 30 years learning his art. Heejin confirmed. We have many like him in different fields. Artists who can create beauty that moves people to tears. Scientists who solve problems through intuition as much as calculation. Farmers who understand their land like it's a living thing. Humans excel when we combine knowledge, practice, and patience. Your species is more formidable than we imagined, the delegate said. We're not trying to be formidable, Heejin replied. We're just trying to be ourselves. Back at the monastery, Yemen was struggling with his first lesson. Breath control seemed so simple, yet he couldn't maintain the slow, steady rhythm Deho demonstrated. Don't force it, Deho instructed. Let your breath find its natural pace. Then gradually guide it slower. Fighting against your body only creates tension. Jamin tried again, and this time he felt the difference. The breath flowed easier when he didn't fight it. Why is breathing so important? Jamin asked during a break. Because everything begins with breath, Deho explained. When you control your breath, you control your mind. When you control your mind, you control your body. When you control your body, you control your actions. And when you control your actions, you control your life. Is that how you defeated the Vryn? By controlling your breath? I defeated the Vryn by understanding what they didn't understand. They controlled their technology perfectly, but they didn't control themselves. They let anger guide them. They let overconfidence blind them. They let their tools become crutches. Daiho stood and moved through a slow form, each movement flowing into the next. True strength isn't about having the best weapons or the strongest armor. It's about being so completely in harmony with yourself that nothing can disturb your center. Jamin watched in silence, beginning to understand that he wasn't just learning how to fight, he was learning how to live. That evening, as the sun set over the mountains, Deho stood at the edge of the cliff and looked out at the valley below. Somewhere beyond those mountains, beyond Earth's atmosphere, beyond the solar system, the galaxy continued its daily business. Species traded, ships traveled, councils met and debated, and somewhere out there, people were talking about the human who had defeated the Vryn Empire's best warriors, using nothing but ancient techniques and perfect discipline. Deho smiled slightly. Let them talk. Let them wonder. Let them question their assumptions about what made someone strong. The galaxy had learned an important lesson, but not the one Talvos had intended to teach. They had learned that old didn't mean obsolete, that quiet didn't mean weak, that small didn't mean insignificant.